presentation, and this presentation will help us to understand a little bit more John 1 and 2. This is meant to be a supplement to Dr. Christmas's material, the course notes that you should be reading. And so you should be able to see on your screen this PowerPoint presentation, John 1, 2, the Word was God. It's just going to be a few slides that we go through in just a few minutes as we discuss some things unique to these chapters that I think you might want to, just kind of have the issues framed for you or keep in your mind. So the first slide, in the beginning. As Dr. Christmas points out, this is going to remind us a lot of Genesis 1. John 1 is going to look like the New Testament version of the creation story with Genesis 1. Now you can see here, the verse on the screen is going to be, in Greek, NRK, ein halagos, kai halagos, en proston theon, kai theos, en halagos. So the idea is, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and God was the Word, or the Word was God is the correct translation. We're going to discuss why God was the Word is not the correct translation. I was just preserving the word order. So you see that in Greek this translates to, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with the untranslated God, and the Word was God. Why was it not translated and God was the Word? Why should it not be translated and the Word was a God, like Jehovah's Witnesses do? They're pretty intense on that. They're pretty solid and focused and lasered in that no, the Word was a God. We're going to kind of knock that out really quickly here. First, we're going to go over Greek grammar. And I know what you're thinking. You're going to roll your eyes and say, I don't want to deal with that. Well, without this becoming a grammar course, we can still see some good reasons for translating it as Orthodox Christians do. The way it's been translated, there are good reasons for it. So we can see that here. The reason John has the lack of the article on the word God is not because he's trying to state Jesus is a type of God or one among many gods. It's so that we can distinguish which is the subject of the sentence, God or Word. Let me point that out for you. Okay, this is going to get a little technical, but when there are two nouns in an independent clause with the nominative, that's the subject, ending in the sentence. So if you're reading Greek, you're going to see a sentence, and there's two. You're trying to figure out, okay, what's the subject? In English, we often focus on word order to find out the subject. The boy threw the ball. Well, what's the subject? It's the thing doing the action. The boy is the subject, boy. Not ball. The ball's not the subject, the ball's the object, okay? And we figure that out through word order. If we said the ball threw the boy, although that's silly, the subject is the ball in that case, and we use it through word order. However, in Greek, word order doesn't always mean a whole lot. It's going to be the way the word is formed. The ending of the word will give you a clue. Is it the subject, the thing doing the action in the sentence, or is it the object, the thing receiving the action in the sentence? And there's all these different ways you can figure it out. Well, suppose that you have an independent clause or a sentence that has the two candidates, the two nouns, trying to figure out, well, they both have the same ending. Which one is the subject? Is it just willy-nilly, I'll translate it how I feel like? Well, no. When that happens, the subject of the sentence is the noun that takes the article. So there's only one noun that takes the article in this area, and that's not God, it's the Word. So that's why you need to translate it, the Word was God. That's why there's no article attached with God. John's trying to emphasize that the Word, who will later be identified as Jesus in the chapter, that Word, Jesus, He is God. And so we want to see here, Jesus, He became flesh and dwelt among us, and we beheld His glory. The glory as of the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth. We must be careful to realize that Jesus Christ took on a human nature to His divine person. So He became one person, a divine person, with two natures, a divine nature and a human nature. He did not become two persons. That's a view you might learn in your doctrines classes as Nestorianism, which, historical note, poor Nestorius probably got hosed on this whole thing. It's not clear he ever actually believed that Jesus Christ was two persons. Rather, it looks like his theological opponents railroaded him and got his name attached to a bad doctrine there. So that stinks. He got a bad rap. But Nestorianism, two persons of Christ? No, we don't do that. And it's not the case that Jesus Christ is a half man, half God hybrid. That's not the way it is either. He is one divine person. And that divine person, the second person of the Trinity, God the Son, has two natures: a human nature, that is a fully human nature, what it means to be a human. And then there is a divine nature, a fully divine nature. And they're not half and half or mixed together. Next, we want to take a look here. Jesus shows he is God. So this is important because John has been telling us that Jesus is God. But now John takes pains to show us that Jesus is showing he's God. So at the end of John 1, Jesus surprises Nathanael in verses 48 and 49. Basically, Nathanael comes up to him and he says, "Hey, I saw you under a tree." And there's no way he could have physically seen him under the tree. And Nathanael said, "Whoa, you've got to be the Messiah that we've been looking for." And Jesus is like, "Well, you think that's great? You're going to see a lot better things than that if you follow me." And so that's the story of how Nathanael follows Jesus. But Jesus shows divine insight, supernatural power of perception. In John 2, Jesus turns the water into wine at the wedding in Cana. So that's the first recorded miracle in the Gospel of John. It happens before his ministry even goes public, before it was launched, if you will, if you want to use some contemporary church methodology terminology there. So John 2, before it's even launched, Jesus turns the water into wine, a supernatural act. Jesus cleanses the temple in John 2. Some people say this might be just one event. Some people say it might be two events. In either case, you can form some pretty coherent stories. So don't let anyone tell you that the Bible is wrong because John places the cleansing in John 2 and the other Gospels have it later in the ministry. Could be two cleansings, could be one, but in either case, Dr. Christmas leans towards two. Jesus replaces the temple in John 2. And I'm going to read you a quote from D.A. Carson, and I think this is important. Jesus said, before I read you the quote, Jesus said, "Hey, if you destroy this temple, in 3 days I'll raise it up." And he's doing a little wordplay. And the idea is not the physical building, not the material, but the Jesus Christ's personal body. Hey, you think you're going to kill me? Well, guess what? In 3 days, I'll raise it up. And that's going to be a huge prediction that the disciples ultimately remember, and that reinforces and strengthens their belief in Jesus Christ once they see him resurrected. Jesus knows the hearts of people. Now, when Jesus, after he's performed these miracles and signs, people come to him and they believe him. But you know what? A theme in John, and you're going to see this later, is that people come to Jesus for superficial reasons. And guess what? He knows that they have come to him for superficial reasons, that they're not really following him. They're following for what they can get out of him, or they're following for the show, or they're following for the sheer spectacle of watching him being miraculous, and they want to be around greatness or something. But Jesus was able to discern the inside of people, the stuff that regular humans we don't have access to. D.A. Carson says, Jesus, far from being limited like other human beings, does what God does. And that is what John is continually trying to emphasize throughout John chapters 1 and 2. Jesus is God. He does what God does. And so that's what I want you to think about, and that's what I want you to remember throughout this week as you go forward. God bless.